there's nothing like a lukewarm Qingdao. I do have to point out, I'm not being sponsored by Qingdao, but I did do a whole video on drinking lukewarm beer in China. Please check it out. It's very, very informative. I'm gonna put this drink down. Okay, I'm back. So we're here with Yin Yang China, in which I'm talking about positive and negative aspects of Chinese culture. For the time being, I'm focusing on some of the negative things that we foreigners have to deal with living here, and then I'm also pairing them with the positive aspects of whatever negative things I talk about. Later on, I'm going to be adding in some of the positive sides to living in China, and then also talking about the negative aspects. So right now I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit kind of weird, but it's an elephant in the room that needs to be dealt with, and that is squat toilets. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, this is what they look like, and this is your classic Asian toilet, which is basically just hole in the ground. Of course, you know, you can get very fancy ones with porcelain and I don't know, probably gold and things like that. These are very common and ubiquitous in China. I do have to point out that in the past several years, maybe the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, there's been a lot of changes in China, and one of the changes is a lot of the tourist areas and popular places to go in China, as well as the malls, the movie theaters, a lot of restaurants. It's a lot more common to have Western style sitting toilets as opposed to these ones where you have to squat. And also, most Chinese people that live in the cities and are sort of like in that sort of middle class range, they tend to have Western toilets in their houses. The main complaint among them being that it's tiring to use the more traditional style. However, when you get outside of the cities into the villages, if you go to tourist attractions but don't go to like the designated restroom area for tourists, you know, like for example, you go to a tourist attraction, then go to like a restaurant nearby. If it's not one of the places in the big main cities, you're highly likely to run into one of these squat toilets. And, you know, first of all, it's really weird for most Western people to have to use that kind of toilet. It's just kind of like really, it just feels weird, as you can imagine. And on top of that, a lot of them tend to be very poorly maintained. I've been to places outside of the city, like for example, my wife's hometown. I've been to the houses of friends of hers who live really out of the city. There, I would consider them, I don't know if I would say villagers, because it's not really a village. It's more like a town, but in the outskirts of the town. And their restroom is exactly what I just described, a hole in the ground outside. Now you might think, all right, that's kind of cool. No, it's not cool, especially in the dead of winter when it's like super freezing and the main toilet is outside, and then on top of that it's like not very well cleaned, you know, there's flies and stuff. Oh, it's like really gross. A lot of times when you go to the tourist attractions, again, the toilets are broken. I'm not going to get into too much graphic detail, but again, it's like pretty gross. So if you come to China, assuming you're living in the city in a relatively nice apartment and dealing with, you know, middle class people and going to the mall and things like that, you're probably not going to have any problems. But if you do any sort of traveling and go outside of the city, do any exploring or adventuring, you're definitely going to encounter them. So what's the upside? Well, there is one major upside, which is despite the fact that many of them are poorly cleaned, they're still more hygienic than than the other kind, in my opinion. What I mean by that is, let's imagine you go to some village, whatever, tourist attraction area, and you know, you go to use the restroom, and it's a Western style toilet that's like super dirty. That's like, even if there's like paper or something to put on it, that's still pretty gross, assuming you need to like sit. But with the Asian style toilets, you don't have to touch anything. Literally, you're not touching anything, assuming you have good balance. And if you don't have good balance, that can be a major problem. But let's not get into that. Point is, as long as you have good balance, you don't have to touch anything. It's actually a lot more hygienic. Assuming, okay, and this is gonna get kind of graphic, so please, like if you're squeamish about things, skip the video ahead 20, 30 seconds. Assuming you have good control over certain aspects of using these Asian style squat toilets, because if you're wearing shorts and sandals and you don't have socks and you don't have long pant legs, it's entirely possible to have accidents. So that's like a downside as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, overall, the upside is I do actually feel that they're a lot cleaner or more hygienic for you, the user, in terms of being out in a place where it's generally speaking not very clean to begin with. So that's the end of another of my Yin Yang China series. I'm interested to hear your stories. Have you traveled in Asia, whether it's China or other Asian countries? I know that these kind of toilets are common in other places as well. Do you have any horror stories? Do you have any tips or tricks? Do you have any other sort of upsides or downsides that I didn't mention? Please do leave them in the comments. If you're interested in this kind of content, please head over to Patreon. The link is in the description. And this is the last series of 3 that I shot in one day right outside my apartment. And I have not yet worked out the whole catchphrase thing to say goodbye. So I'll do that hopefully by the next series of videos, and I'll see you next time.